E-bikes are heavy, we all know that, but that doesn't mean that they can't get big air. So this is how to jump on your e-bike. So why should you learn how to jump your e-bike? Well, it's fun, but also you see a lot of the top downhill racers will use jumping as a technique for getting up and over stuff they don't really want to ride, so rocks, bumps, gnarly stuff, but I don't think you need an excuse, it's just a lot of fun. When learning to jump any bike, I always recommend starting off on quite a small jump, but this one actually has a decent sized takeoff, so my whole bike will fit on this. If you start off with a jump that has a really small takeoff, it can be a bit unpredictable, so this is a nice safe one. It's also a tabletop, so I've got a middle to the jump. I don't have to try and clear any gaps. Again, nice and safe. I can learn how to take off properly and just land in the middle for now. Then I can add a bit more speed and land on the downslope. That's the other thing to be aware of. Obviously an e-bike, you've got the power. It's really tempting just to throw a load of speed at it. But let's start off slow, not use that power. Let's land on the top. Then we can start to get the right technique, add a bit more speed and hopefully clear to the landing. If you haven't seen my how to bunny hop video, I would check that out before you do the jumps because it's really going to help. It's a case of trying to translate that bunny hop technique to the jump to actually drive that bike up and into the air. An e-bike is heavy, so you're going to really need to nail that technique first. So when you translate that bunny hop to the jump, it's all about the pump, and that's in this transition from the flat and the jump starts going up. So you're trying to squash the bike in, and then you're not manualing, you're just driving the front wheel up, so you're behind the bike. Then as the rear wheel lifts, that's when you stand up and forward it and lift the back wheel. But this pump here is really important. It should feel exactly the same on a hardtail to a full suspension bike. Same technique. The only difference is a full suspension bike, that rear shock is almost trying to soak up this jump. So you really need to concentrate on putting a big pump in. We call that a preload, but it's the same thing as just pumping a hardtail. Squash that bike in, that really is key to getting big air on a full suspension e-bike. But let's go back a step first before we clear this jump, and let's look at the most important part of the jump, and that's the takeoff. So let's look at that pump and driving the bike up, and to begin with, let's land on top of the tabletop. Initiating the jump comes into two parts. First the transition and then the takeoff. So in the transition, this is where you're pumping the bike. This is all about driving the hips down and into the floor. If you really think about it, if you hit this jump fast, your full suspension bike would squash into the floor anyway, or even on a hardtail, you would feel that squash. You're just trying to exaggerate that using a pump, and then you're dropping your hips back, going up the takeoff, and that's driving the front wheel up and into the air. Pause, leave your hips back until your rear wheel leaves the floor. So once you feel confident landing on the top of the jump, now it's time for the fun bit, is to add some speed, but also now you're gonna need that rear wheel lift. So the last part of the bunny hop, we stand up and forward to pick the back wheel up. That's actually gonna start nosing your bike in, but that's also what you want, because hopefully now you're looking for a downslope, and you're trying to match the angle of that landing. Often your front wheel will land first, just because it gets there first. The bike is still at the same angle of that downslope. So a bit more speed, rear wheel lift. Don't forget to look for your landing. Don't start looking in the middle of the jump. You've got to be looking beyond the landing as soon as you're in the air, and it's time to start clearing those jumps. When it comes to moving on to bigger jumps, it really is using that same technique to make that air to clear the gap, because now this is like a 20-foot jump, and I really do need to clear that. If I come up short, I can be getting into trouble. However, if you find a jump with a good run in, so you can hit this jump at the perfect speed, and it's got a nice takeoff, often you don't have to use that hop technique. The speed and that takeoff is really going to send you into the air perfectly anyway. However, you're always going to need that technique if you need to lift one wheel or the other a little bit more. If you don't always judge it right, you might end up with the front wheel in the air too high. You've then got to pick the back wheel up so that you level out in the air. But it really is a case of using the same technique, but upping your speed and making sure you still get a good takeoff. It's going to take a lot of speed to jump from that takeoff to here, but like with anything, with jumps, just build up gradually to get bigger and bigger. It's a case of experience. When you do lots of jumps, you'll know how fast to hit this, or at least have a pretty good guess. It can often be good to follow a friend as well. If they've got this jump dialed and they know the right speed, just follow them in. A common mistake here that people often do when trying to get the bike up into the air is trying to use their muscles, so trying to pull the bike up, force it into the air using arms and legs. Now that's not going to work very well in the first place on an e-bike because of the weight. You're not going to be able to pull it up very far. But also it's the main reason why people start going sideways. We often call it the dead sailor, just that horrible feeling of hitting a jump and going stiff and the bike going one way or the other. It's often coming from those bars. So really practice this pumping, driving and getting the bike up into the air using your weight. Hopefully the bike is going to stay a lot straighter. Something important to note when hitting fast jumps on e-bikes is that you might hit the pedal assist speed limit on the way in, and that will really affect how your bike jumps. If you hit the limit just before the jump, weight's going to go forward and actually you might find you don't have enough speed to clear it. So in that case, on fast run-ins, I would take a few goes at it and try and work out if you're going to hit that pedal assist limit before you try and hit that jump. So that's how to jump an e-bike. It's really easy to do a jump loads and loads of times. You can just spin back up the run-in and do it again. So hopefully you'll learn how to jump pretty quickly. A couple of videos are going to help you out with this one. Click up there for how to manual, down there for how to bunny hop. Give us a thumbs up if you like doing jumps and don't forget to subscribe.